What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Burrow77 coming to you with my good friend Brandie Mack from Twitter. Brandie and I have been handicapping college basketball and we've been talking back and forth college hoops for almost 5 years now. Brandie was nice enough to join me last season to bring us an extended tournament preview. And she's back again to bring us some more college basketball picks and hopefully be a little bit of a recurring guest on the show here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Love college basketball, love handicapping it, keeping up with the sport and growing it in any way that I can. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure to talk college basketball with another major fan. I know you are Auburn alum and you went to the game in Houston, correct?
I did. It was incredible. The atmosphere was amazing. It was also really neat because before the game, the FSU and Rice game was going on. So I got to catch a little bit of that. So as a college hoops junkie, it was nice that my ticket got me into both games. And honestly, with all of the off-the-court drama that happened leading up to the game, I was a little nervous for it. But once the guys got out there, and I was like, yeah, they're pretty locked in and playing well. And our All-American, Janai Broome, just had an incredible game. And then our true freshman, Todd Pettiford, he went crazy. Witnessing that in person was incredible. It was a top 3 in-person game that I've been to for sure. Hopefully my team can keep that November magic rolling later down the road in March.
They definitely look good. I would have appreciated if they scored one less point last night because I was on the Golden Flashes to cover there. I had plus 23, so I got a push, but I know a few people that caught the line late got 22.5 and got hooked on that. Me kind of doing maybe a little bit of an emotional letdown spot. And plus, Kent State has just been outstanding at covering massive numbers like that against very good programs over the past couple of years. So a little bit of a just instinct play there. I was happy with the push. Would have liked it if they scored one less to get that as a win and to keep some people from getting hooked. But we have 5 excellent games coming up Friday to talk about. We are going to lead off tonight talking Alabama at Purdue. This one is tipping off at 7 p.m. and will be broadcast over on Peacock. The big story here is Daniel Jacobson's injury. Purdue loses their starting center for the season with a broken fibula. He's going to be medically redshirted, so it won't affect his eligibility too much. But this is going to be a really good game. It is a true road test for Bama at Purdue's building. We know Alabama likes to play full throttle Nate Oates ball. They like to run the court. They like to play in transition, whereas Purdue likes to slow the pace up and is a little bit more methodical with their offensive possessions and scoring. Purdue's been red hot shooting the 3 ball to start the season, whereas Alabama has struggled a little bit. Purdue's knocking down about 35% of their shots from behind the arc to start the season. It's going to be an interesting game. I definitely lean Alabama here, but I'd like to get a couple of your thoughts.
Yeah, I actually lean Alabama here as well, even as an Auburn fan. Alabama just hasn't been that great from behind the arc, like you said, and I think positive regression will eventually catch up to them. It also could have to do with the fact that Mark Sears is playing off the ball, or has been their first 3 games of the season, whereas he played more of a point guard role last year. They do have a little bit more of a scoring ability inside the paint this year that they just didn't have last year, whether that's in Cliff Omori from basically like a lob threat inside on offense, or Grant Nelson too. He's been pretty decent for them. He's kind of played both the 3 and 4 for them this year. And also too, just LeBaron Philon. He's their point guard that's been playing the 1 instead of Mark Sears. And while he doesn't really have a 3 ball right now, at least not yet, he does have the ability to score in the paint. And I feel like he's done pretty good at that. And they've done better in the paint this year on offense than they did last year. This Alabama team is just super athletic. And they're super lengthy. They started a very, very tall lineup against McNeese State earlier this week. And I'm just not sure with the injuries that Purdue has with Daniel Jacobson being out. They don't have Zach Edey on their team anymore. I don't know if they'll be able to keep up with Alabama from just a pure athleticism standpoint, especially with how good Alabama's been scoring inside the paint this year. Because even though they haven't been that great from behind the arc, that's going to catch up eventually. They're going to get there. All Nate Oates teams will always shoot well eventually from behind the arc, but they're doing well inside the paint.
Yeah, I like Nate Oates' philosophy. Get your transition threes if you can. Otherwise, get the ball to the rim and finish at the paint. Look to draw contact and get a three-point play the old school way. The other thing we definitely need to mention is Alabama has been better on the glass than Purdue. Alabama has definitely stepped up their rebounding game a lot. And Purdue can definitely get sloppy with the basketball. If Alabama can win the turnover battle here, that will be massive for them, as well as obviously their advantage at the free throw line. Purdue doesn't put teams at the free throw line a ton, but they also don't convert their free throws into points. They only shoot about 70% from the stripe, which is a little bit tough, especially against an Alabama defense that defends well at all three levels, at the perimeter, in the mid-range, and down in the paint.
Yeah, I think that is what is different about this Bama team compared to last year. They've been a little bit better on defense. Purdue's going to have to make sure they don't get baited into fouling Mark Sears. He's pretty known for being a foul baiter type of guard. So that's going to be interesting to see how they kind of handle that. I think it's also going to be interesting to see which guard on the other side of the floor that Oates puts on Fletcher Lawyer. He's been red hot to start the season, especially behind the arc. And if they put Mark Sears on him, I do think that he can continue that streak just with the size that Fletcher has compared to how small Mark is. So that'll be interesting to kind of see what Bama does on defense from a matchup perspective in the guard room. I think we're getting like a really good guard matchup though in Braden Smith and Mark Sears. So that's going to be super exciting to watch. I do like what you said though about the rebounding part. Like Purdue kind of got out rebounded by Yale. I'm having flashbacks mentioning Yale, but in Purdue's game against their most recent game against Yale, they got out rebounded on offensive boards by Yale. So that's a concern against a team like Alabama that's athletic and has been cleaning up on the glass.
Absolutely. So in a tight game here, I am going to go ahead and take Alabama minus the 1.5. This is available at minus 115 over on BetMGM. We're starting to see some 2s and some 2.5s creep up as well. So if you like this number on Bama, it might be better to get ahead of this line movement and bet tonight than waiting for tomorrow to see where the line settles. We will keep it moving right into FAU at Charleston. This is a great mid-major game, and it's a great segue to talk about the Charleston Classic that is starting next Wednesday, where we will have some very early afternoon college basketball tip-offs. If you like to have a game going or some bets while you're in the office, this Charleston Classic is always a great one to kind of circle for you. And FAU did impress me in a 94-100 loss versus UCF. Leland Walker knocked down 4 of 7 3-point tries. He scored 20 points while pulling down 5 rebounds, dishing 5 assists, and creating 2 steals. Brosvik, we're going with Brosvik, is an absolute stud for Charleston. He scored 34 versus USF and 27 versus SIU. He went 9 for 10 from the free throw line versus USF. Brosvik also has pulled down 9 rebounds in both games this season while adding 2 blocks and 4 dimes. Brosvik really is the engine that drives this Charleston offense. Leland Walker is good for FAU. They don't have a guy like Brosvik that you circle and go, we have to know where he is on the floor at every second of the game. Otherwise, we're in trouble.
Yep, I'm with you there. I think this game is really going to come down to, can FAU stop him? And I don't know if they can. This dude is like 6'10", massive, and all he does is just bully people inside. That's kind of going to be a problem for an FAU team that doesn't necessarily have a super strong front court. Also, Charleston has, I think, a better defense than FAU. I think they guard the perimeter really well. And FAU is a little prone to turnovers. They are averaging 13.3 turnovers per game right now. So they're really going to have to clean that up. But both of these teams do have decent offenses. I think I'm going to have to give FAU kind of the the upper hand on offense there. They still have a good offense, and even though Dusty May isn't there, they still have a similar identity to the types of teams that he would kind of put out there. Kind of definitely lean a little bit more Charleston because of FAU's fall off on defense, but I think FAU can hang around. This is going to be a really, really good mid-major game, a good back and forth game, and I would tune in specifically for Brosvik because that kid is good, and I think he's going to be playing in March this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Charleston's got a nice squad. They definitely defend the perimeter extremely well, and FAU does most of their shooting behind the arc, so that should hinder their offensive production a little bit. Neither team rebounds particularly well offensively. They both put in a ton of effort on the defensive glass, but whoever creates the most second chance points and second chance points opportunities should be able to get a little bit of an edge in this one. FAU goes to the free throw line a ton, and Charleston is not disciplined when it comes to fouls. And FAU shooting right around 71-72% from the stripe could hurt them here. This one is definitely going to be good. Thank you for reminding me that you would tune into this one. I forgot to mention this one will be tipping off at 7 p.m. and this one will be free to everyone. It is going to be broadcast on YouTube, which they did for a couple early season games this year, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I think that's through Field of 68's YouTube. So you can probably go to their Twitter account to find the link to that too. So this should be just, I think this is going to be a really good matchup. And I definitely lean Charleston in this one over FAU. What are you thinking?
I think I'm going to take FAU plus the 2.5 and just put a little bit of a sprinkle on the money line here. I really liked what I saw out of FAU in that UCF game. I like their ability to get to the stripe where Charleston lacks discipline, and Brosvik does have to worry about his fouls. He had 4 fouls in his first game versus SIU, and he fouled out with 5 versus USF. So if you can get him in foul trouble, that becomes a major problem for Charleston, especially down the stretch late.
I like it, taking the points.
Yeah, I think I would prefer to get 3, obviously, but I'll take the points here in a tight coin flip game, and I'm going to sprinkle the road dogs on the money line.
One other thing, too, that's interesting about this game these are 2 new head coaches with these teams this year. So I think that's just a little bit of extra fun sprinkled in there, too, because Chris Mack this is his first year at Charleston, and then obviously Michigan hired away Dusty May, so they have a new head coach too. So I think it's going to be interesting on that regard because these 2 head coaches really haven't seen each other with these respective teams.
Next, we're going to move right into Marquette at Maryland. This game is tipping off at 8 p.m. over on FS1. Marquette hasn't looked very good playing lesser competition to start the season. They ended up covering at home versus George Mason, but Mason was in that game until the final 5 minutes. Definitely a little friendly home whistle there for Marquette. Mason couldn't buy a call, and they played poorly for 35 minutes of that game. And they followed that up by beating Central Michigan 70-62. Central Michigan does play a pretty good amount of zone, which I know can be difficult for college teams. Central Michigan did then go on to beat George Mason yesterday, but I mean, Central Michigan's not a program that Marquette should be struggling with. Maryland, on the other hand, has completely dominated all of their warm-up games, not allowing more than 53 points scored against them. Derek Queen has been a standout freshman center. He made a bunch of headlines with his 22-point, 20-rebound, 2-block debut game versus Manhattan. And Maryland also has a point guard that I like a lot, Jacoby Gillespie, that transferred in from Belmont as a junior. Marquette's stacked with returning players. They're returning 5 guys. It's not a starting 5, but they're now starting 5 guys that have been in the Marquette program under Shaka Smart. So you have a team that should be gelling and playing better together in Marquette that just isn't, and a Maryland squad that is playing really well to start the season again, but hasn't played stiff competition, and last year they definitely fell apart a little bit once they got into some of their harder competition games.
Yeah, I'm with you here on that. The questions here, is Maryland's team legit this year? Or are they going to just fall apart again when they play real competition? Central Michigan's head coach is my least favorite person in all of college basketball. He used to coach at Auburn, Tony Barbie. So anytime that I hear his team winning or doing well against other opponents, it makes me annoyed. But Marquette got out rebounded by Central Michigan 46-27, which is kind of crazy. And that's a real concern for Marquette, and I think it will be going through the rest of the season. But especially in this game, because I think Maryland has probably the best player on the floor, or will be in this game, and freshman Derek Queen. He's been very solid inside the paint for Maryland, and he attacks the glass on both sides of the ball, and really great scoring threat on offense for his size. And I just don't know how Marquette's going to be able to stop him from getting second chance points on when he's on offense after rebounding, because they really don't have anybody to replace Oso after he left this past year. And I think that hole is like glaring for them right now. On top of that, like you're already
missing too, like that's another huge piece for them.
Yeah, and maybe that's why their 3-point percentage has looked as bad as it has in their guard room. I mean, they're shooting like 29.4% from three, and Shaka Smart's teams always have really high volume threes. So starting off the season in a 3-point shooting rut, it's just not how you want to see this team playing right now, especially if you're a Marquette fan. I just haven't been that impressed with them. And I do think Maryland has a little bit more of a scoring threat, even just outside of Derek Queen this year. They have a pretty decent transfer in Rodney Rice. He's come off the bench, but he's really playing starting minutes for them. And he's kind of given some more life to this Maryland team that felt like last year at times just didn't have much of a threat on the offensive side of the ball. So this game is kind of concerning. And just from a pure numbers standpoint, it's a number 15 AP ranked Marquette team going on the road to a team that's unranked by AP right now, but per KenPom is only 5 spots away, and the margin's pretty small between Maryland and Marquette in those advanced analytics. So just from a pure numbers standpoint here, at being at home, I kind of definitely lean Maryland -2.5 here.
Yeah, listen, I'm definitely biased here. I have a huge vendetta against Shaka Smart. He's absolutely atrocious at covering the number, especially on the road. And he's somebody I usually look to fade, especially when it comes to big spreads and difficult road games. So if you're listening at home, make sure you take that into account. I definitely am biased. Shaka Smart is a head coach that even after he left the VCU job when he went to Texas, is a guy that has torched me time and time again, especially on the road. So I'm going to take Maryland here, and I'm perfectly fine laying the -1.5 at -110 over on DraftKings. This Marquette team's not playing good, and Shaka Smart struggles on the road. So I'm not running to the window to try and back Marquette here. And I don't put as much weight into November AP ratings or any of, I obviously subscribe to KenPom. I use a lot of metrics, but a lot of this stuff is all projections based on these guys playing scrubs in like warm-up games.
Right.
So it's going to take probably a good 7 or 8 games under the belt with 2 to 3 marquee or like big game matchups before we can kind of figure out who these teams are and what their identities are. As of right now, I'm perfectly fine taking Maryland at home and laying under a full possession.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Maryland has a number 5 defense in the country, but like we talked about, they haven't really played anybody. So is their defense truly as good as the numbers say right now? We'll see, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Marquette's really played not much of anybody either and has kind of struggled with them.
Next up, we have Arizona going to Wisconsin. This one is tipping off at 9 p.m. over on Peacock. We have 2 vastly different play styles here. Arizona wants to run the floor, play in transition, and play with pace. Wisconsin would love a longer shot clock so that they could slow the ball down even more and make it more painful to watch. Wisconsin is a complicated team. I've seen them win games where they've only scored 61 points last year versus Minnesota. It's been a couple of years, but I've seen them win games where they've only scored like 47 points in the game. This Wisconsin team is definitely shooting much better from behind the arc this year, and they're the best team in the country when it comes to shooting free throws right now, knocking down 92.5% of all free throws. Arizona is going to have to be extremely disciplined. If you put Wisconsin at the free throw line, they are absolutely going to make you pay for it. But I think this is going to be a great game because Arizona has a lot of experience and they have a lot of depth. They're very comfortable going to their bench and giving their bench significant minutes, whereas Wisconsin is going to run a lot of their starting five.
Right. And one, I think, like you said, the pace of play, because like two totally different spectrums there. But the depth that Arizona has, Jaden Bradley and Caleb Love in their guard room, they're also really, really physical in the paint. Toby Awaka is really good for Arizona. That's a transfer that's there this year. But Wisconsin, I think, is kind of interesting. They have been better offensively this year than they were last year. They're averaging more threes this year than they did at the beginning of last year. I think it's like 45% threes on possession compared to what they started off with last year. So I think it's going to be a really interesting game. I don't know if like fun is the right word to describe this game, but I think that Wisconsin has to do a better job at attacking ball screens on defense because they haven't done that well this year. And if they don't do that well for a guard room and a front court that are both really strong, like they might end up getting blown out. But it is on the road. For them, it is home. So Arizona is having to go on the road and traveling there. So that could play a factor. But, it didn't really last year when Wisconsin played Tennessee at home early and had a huge rocking crowd. So that's kind of what happens, though, when these really good, strong teams go on the road. They can kind of withstand the home crowd a little bit.
Yeah, and it is important to note that both of these teams have very, very efficient field goal shooting percentages from the floor. Arizona should be able to knock down the three ball a little bit better here against a shaky perimeter defense from Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's definitely going to need threes to stay in this game. But like we said, Arizona is very good defensively. The big plus for Wisconsin here, other than their free throw shooting, I would say is that they're extremely secure with the basketball. If they are able to pick Arizona's pockets here a little bit, I don't think they're going to commit very many turnovers, and you're not going to get a lot of cheap or easy transition buckets if you're Arizona, because it's just going to be really hard to come up with steals and make quick moves here against this Wisconsin team.
Yeah. Also, last year felt like Wisconsin's offensive identity really gelled around AJ Storr, and he transferred to Kansas, and now they replaced him with the 6-year transfer from Colorado State, John Tonji, and he's been really good for them to start the season off. Really a 3-level ability, is a good shooter, physical attacker, and he's just an all-around good offensive player for them at the wing position. And so I know when people think about Wisconsin, they've always thought about AJ because he has been for the last few years, really who their offense has been kind of gelled around. But I think they did a good job in the portal this year because John Tonji's been good for them these first few games, and it'll be interesting to see how Arizona defends him.
Yeah, I like it. For me on this one, I'm going to go ahead and take Arizona -4.5. I will say I'm not sure what this number is going to do, but I'm pretty comfortable with Arizona keeping it inside a -6. I would go up to 2 full possessions. I would say that I would hesitate going through -6. I'm not going to get super interested in giving up a third possession there. But I think Arizona can win this game as long as the number stays within 2 full 3-point possessions. So give me Zona -4.5 available at -110 over on FanDuel.
I like it. I think that we're getting Arizona at a good price since they're on the road.
Let's keep it moving into Ohio State versus Texas A&M. This one will be tipping off over on the SEC network at 9 p.m. Ohio State dominated Texas in Las Vegas 80-72 to start the season. I was disappointed to see that gym was completely empty and full of nothing but ghosts. That is absolutely not going to be the case when you travel to College Station. A&M lost outright on the road to a very solid UCF squad to begin the season. They have since beat up on two bottom feeder D1 programs. A&M won the rebound battle with UCF, which was impressive, but they had a few too many turnovers with 12, and they were 8 for 14 from the free throw line. That is not going to cut it. You can't shoot that poorly from the free throw line against Ohio State, who shoots 86% from the charity stripe. They will absolutely bury you.
Yeah, this game to me is really interesting because I think Ohio State's a little bit better than what a lot of people thought going into the season. Bruce Thornton has been dynamic from three to start the season off, and just in general, their offense has been more impressive than probably what most people expected. And Micah Parrish for Ohio State has been pretty decent. On defense, too, that's a transfer from SDSU in their front court. Texas A&M was without Zurich Phelps in that game against UCF, so he's going to add to that guard room for A&M to kind of complement Wade Taylor there. He's a transfer from SMU, and he's pretty efficient from the floor. And then Ohio State, like you mentioned, played in a ghost town of an arena out in Vegas, but they also played a Texas team that had to rely basically on a true freshman to score all of their points for them in Trey Johnson. They were also without Tremont Mark, who was a transfer from Arkansas that was expected to contribute pretty significantly on offense for Texas. So while I think Ohio State is a little bit better than what we thought, going into a road environment like Texas A&M, they're going to be rocking in College Station. I think this game is going to come down to whose guards play better. Can Ohio State's offense really sustain the success that they've had early this season, especially from behind three? Or is this kind of like, oh, we just started hot, we'll hit regression, and we're maybe not really as good as we may look right now, or maybe they are. I don't know. I think it's too early to tell with this Ohio State team, but for the most part, their guard room has looked solid. On the A&M side of the ball, their guard room has just looked okay. They obviously have a super solid senior in Wade Taylor, but to me, he's just a shot chucker, and if he's not on, then that's not a good sign for A&M, and he does sometimes struggle with sharing the ball. And I think A&M, to win this game and especially to cover, going to have to really rely on Wade Taylor passing the ball to the other solid guards like Zurich in his guard room, and also just winning the boards, which I think they will do a decent job at rebounding in this game.
Yeah, it's definitely important to mention that Ohio State shot the lights out of the gym in that empty Vegas gym. They went 14 for 28 from behind the arc, which is extremely impressive. OSU is also Ken Palm's number one ranked defense when it comes to field shooting from the floor. They're outstanding at the perimeter. They're even better in the mid-range, and they're excellent in the paint. A&M might be able to work the glass and out-rebound OSU here if they play up to their potential. The thing is, Ohio State isn't super secure with the rock either. So if A&M's able to pick their pocket and create turnovers, that's definitely going to help them as opposed to, how they looked versus UCF. And like I said, I think the big key here is you can't put Ohio State at the free throw line. If you're shooting 78, 80, 82% from the free throw line, that's going to completely bury a team who struggles to shoot 62% from the stripe.
Yeah, I'm with you there. If this game comes down to free throws, definitely side with Ohio State there because A&M's been a little underwhelming from the line this season. I think the biggest thing here is, will Ohio State's offense stay hot? Will A&M not make sure that Ohio State doesn't get to the line often? And really, can Texas A&M continue rebounding on the offensive side of the glass as well as they have been?
I was impressed with this Ohio State team. Curious to see if they can do it in a road environment. And I'm getting more than a full possession with Ohio State. I'm going to take Ohio State plus 4.5, available at minus 108 over on DraftKings Sportsbook. And I think I'm going to throw a little sprinkle on the money line at plus 160 over on FanDuel.
I like it. I'm probably going to tell you on that. I think Thornton and Mobley stay hot. I don't think it's a sham. They've been able to create some really good looks. So I'm going to tell you on that one for sure.
Yeah, so quickly just going over the games, I'll let you guys know where I'm at. Brandie, if you want to tell people whether or not you're going to play or pass on a game, that's fine too. I am going to take Alabama minus the 1.5 at minus 115 over on MGM. I'm going to take FAU plus the 2.5 and sprinkle the money line just a little bit. I didn't see a money line number up, so I don't know where the best price on that is going to be. I'm going to take Maryland minus the 1.5. I'm going to take Zona minus 4.5. And I'm going to take Ohio State plus the 4.5 and sprinkle on their money line as well.
Yeah, and I'm on the same side of all of those except for Charleston, FAU, and I'm taking Charleston in that one. But I'm with you on Bama, Maryland, Arizona, and Ohio State.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining me tonight, Brandie. It's been a blast. I hope to see you again in the future. If you want to let the people know where to find you or find any of your college basketball hot takes, go ahead and let them know.
Yeah, feel free to follow me on Twitter at BrandieMac. That's Brandie, IE, and 2 more E's, and then MAC over on Twitter. I keep up with college basketball across the board, mid-majors, low majors. Have some really great people that I follow and keep up with that do film breakdown and other things that I like to share. So yeah, feel free to follow me on there. I'm definitely an Auburn fan, and most of my content is geared towards Auburn basketball. However, I do like to keep up across the country with all of these teams because I think this is the best sport in the world. So
absolutely. And I love having you on. You can also find all those links right down here in the description below for Brandie. I'll have her Twitter handle and everything there. Please make sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube so you can catch more college breakdowns like this and hopefully see Brandie again soon. Next time, I'm Burroaks. This is Brandie. We thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, and we hope to see you at the window. We're out. Doses. We outside.